We're happy to recognize my very good friend, Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I come before you in strong opposition to House consideration of H.R. 359, a bill that would summarily repeal our system of public funding for presidential elections. The process by which this bill is being brought to the floor, no hearings, no committee consideration, no markup, no deliberation, is the opposite of responsible legislating. And with due respect, I don't care what the rule looks like on the floor. It is not a substitute for committee markups and committee deliberation. It contradicts everything that I thought the Republican majority had committed to a mere 3 weeks ago. So the process is atrocious. The substance is even worse. This repeal bill would destroy one of the proudest and most successful examples of reform that followed the Watergate scandal, despite the revisionist history we seem to be hearing here this morning. How can we forget what that scandal was about? The committee to re-elect the president, fueled by huge quantities of corporate cash, paying for criminal acts, otherwise subverting the American electoral system. Now, the hallmark of the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1974, enacted in response to Watergate at a time when confidence in our system was dangerously low, that was our voluntary program of public financing for presidential election. And to this day, this innovative reform stands as the flagship of our public financing system in the United States, one of the greatest steps we've taken to bring transparency and accountability to our electoral system. The Supreme Court, in affirming the constitutionality of this system, noted its basic purposes in a very succinct way, and I'm quoting, to reduce the deleterious influence of large contributions on our political process, to facilitate communication by candidates with the electorate, and to free candidates from the rigors of fundraising. Presidential public financing has worked remarkably well, being utilized in the general election by every Republican and Democratic presidential nominee from 1976 through 2004, and by John McCain in 2008, although in recent years the need for modernization has become evident. Let me take just a minute, Mr. Chairman, to give what I think is the best example of this program's success. It's none other than President Ronald Reagan, who participated in the presidential public financing system in all three of his presidential campaigns, 76, 80, and 84. In his 1976 primary campaign, Ronald Reagan had less than $44,000 in campaign money at the end of January 1976. His opponent, incumbent President Ford, had 15 times more cash on hand. The $1 million in public funds that Reagan received in January and the $1.2 million he received in February were essential in allowing him to continue his campaign. Reagan was once again short of cash at the end of March. He was allowed to continue as a result of an infusion of public money. This, by the way, illuminates one way public financing has worked in both parties. It's benefited candidates often, repeatedly, who challenge the party establishment. In later elections, due to his broad base of support throughout the nation, Reagan was able to capitalize on his small donor fundraising capacity to accrue substantial sums of public money. In fact, even in 1984, when he was seeking re-election without significant opposition from within his own party, President Reagan raised about 60% of his campaign funds from small donors. And as a result, he received $9.7 million in matching funds. This was the maximum amount of public money a primary candidate could receive in accordance with the law at that time. To this day, President Reagan is the only candidate ever to reach the public funding primary campaign maximum. So the Reagan case is merely illustrative of the positive effects that public financing has had in both parties, at both the primary and the general election stages. Today, I would wish, I think we all might wish, not for this Republican juggernaut, flying in the face of the positive history of this program, flying in the face of prior Republican support for this program, defying all the rules of responsible legislating. We could wish for a bipartisan effort to examine the system, to repair the system, to restore its effectiveness. I don't know of any policy challenge we face that exemplifies the maxim, mend it, don't end it, better than this one. Today, Congressman Van Hollen and I are reintroducing a bill that would do just that. It would modernize the presidential public financing system and again make it an attractive and viable option for presidential candidates. Our bill would bring available funds into line with the increased cost of campaigns. It would adjust the program to the front-loaded primary calendar, and it would further enhance the role of small donors. It's been carefully designed. It deserves deliberation and debate. At a time when confidence in government is low and assumptions of government corruption are high, why would we try to return to the dark days that spawned Watergate? Let's instead restore and improve our public financing system and move on to real solutions to put our nation's fiscal house in order. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for a very thoughtful presentation, Mr. Price. Ms. Jackson Lee.